I'm going to talk about the process I went through to figure out how to make a drawer pull out of a nickel. The idea occurred to me because I wanted to make drawer pulls for small drawers. So here I am with a socket, a ball peen hammer, a nickel, and a dead blow, and I just dome it by striking it over the socket. I don't know what size the socket was; it was just one I picked up. My first attempt was I attempted to use a brazing rod, like you can buy from any home store, and the torch I use just really doesn't get hot enough. I probably should use MAP gas for something like this, and I knew that, but I figured I could probably get it hot enough. And it did get hot enough to melt the bronze, but the steel never really got hot enough to keep it melted. Um, Especially not to keep that nickel on there without melting the nickel. Unfortunately, nickels, modern nickels, anyways, are just not made to. Well, they're just just not very tough. Um, So here I am, and it took a long time. I got it red hot, and I was able to melt a fair amount of bronze on there. But the steel is so cool, and of course it doesn't look cool because it's red hot, but it's not hot enough to melt the bronze. And so there's my thumbs down. Yeah, I didn't like it. So I moved over to the vise. This is my broken vise. You can see the base plate on the left there, that square thing bolted to the workbench. And I should have cleaned the bench off, yes. So for the safety people out there, yeah, my bench is covered in wood shavings, and I'm using uh, a torch, fire. So I actually had to walk off and go get some other stuff as I thought about this, and I left this on the video so that I could talk a little bit. So I went and got a torch, and obviously this is a different torch. How many torches do I have? I think I have six, maybe. Um, Three map gas torches, and the rest are propane torches. So actually, I think I have seven total. I can't remember. I have a bunch of torches. Um, Usually picked up in boxes of tools and stuff. And actually, this one here is my favorite. It's got a really big tip and tends to get hot very quickly. In this one, I'm using some 3/16 inch steel rod to try to braze onto, and I've had success brazing this material in the past with propane. Not great success, but success enough that I figured I'd give it a try. And I really wanted to use the bronze. I like the colorations of the bronze as it solidifies over steel, and that was kind of the motivation for attempting it this way. Now, again, this movie is about the process, and so there's going to be a lot of failure, and this is one of them. Again, the steel just does not get hot enough to keep the bronze solidified. The bronze itself gets hot enough and does melt. And in fact, there's a little puddle of bronze on there, but I cannot keep it hot enough to bond. And here I try to use my needle nose pliers to put it on there, and there's flux applied to the nickel. Just I figured I'd do that just to see if maybe that made a difference. The flux is just paste flux. I think I bought two or three canisters of this from Radio Shack back when, well, Radio Shack was a brand name. And obviously, the nickel is red hot. And surprisingly, the nickel stayed hotter longer than the steel did. But then again, the steel is on that heavy vise. It's not really heavy, but it's a lot of mass. So here I am using regular. This is just plumbing solder, and it's not it melts at too, this particular solder melts at too low of a temperature. So I think at one point I go and get a different solder and try something different. Here I am with the brass screw. Oh yeah, here's the different solder. Here it is. So I went and got a different type of solder. I didn't go and get it. I had it sitting there beside me. And I just set it on top of there with some paste flux and heated up material. And of course, I pick it up with my hand. It's hot, gets dirty, and I get irritated by that. So I figured I'd melt the solder into the brass screw to begin with, then try to heat the nickel and bond it that way. Eventually, I gave up on that particular idea. I think it would have worked, so I went and got another nickel and cleaned it up. and applied paste flux to it. And this time I'm heating the nickel only slightly, and I have another torch, a different torch. This torch burns at a lower temperature, so I'm heating it very slightly and trying to position it in such a way that when I melt the solder, that it bonds to the nickel. And I flipped it up to check to see that the solder was bonding to the nickel, and it was. And so here I'm pushing the solder into the joint, and I tried. This is a different way I decided to do it. There's another torch, or actually that one might be the same one. But I decided to heat the screw very slowly, so you see the torch is not aimed straight at it, and push the solder into the joint. And actually, this was working really well. And I think that this will be the more successful way to do it. So here I am, crossing my fingers and hoping that it works, and it did, which was great. And you'll see me come back after a few minutes, and it cools. This whole process took about 25 minutes, maybe. Um, so here I come back, and it's cooled. It cools pretty rapidly. There it works. Sorry about the sound in the background there. That's me scuffing on that oak. But it worked, and I'm pretty happy with the result. I've never tried this before. It's just something new to try out. So there you go. That's it. Good night.